Hey guys, my name is Donnie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be working on I'm sorry, I don't know how that happened. In today's video we're going to be working on the Messerschmitt. But guys, take a look at these t-shirts. It was designed by a good buddy of mine. He actually did it a couple of months ago, and I've never actually known when the right time would be for me to start selling these types of merch, if you want to call it that. But I had these printed and they just came out so freaking beautifully that I could not wait to tell you guys all about it. This is the Bugatti that I built, and then there's this one that is the rat rod that I did. I think they are just so beautiful. And then there's another one. Look at this, guys. This is the McLaren. How beautiful are these designs? Like I said, they were done by a good buddy of mine, Cameron. And I'd love for you guys to do yourself a favor and just go check out his Instagram page. He's a multi-talented tattoo artist actually, but he does murals and he does design work and social media development and so on. But in any case, I have set up an online store if you'd like to buy one of these shirts. I made sure that the quality was good, and if you are a car person and you'd like to add to your collection, just go check out that store. But in any case, enough advertising, let's go to the Messerschmitt. Right guys, so this is what the Messerschmitt looks like now. I've now painted it and I still need to sand and polish it to make it nice and shiny. But now I've got this empty shell and I need to get a drivetrain for it, and I need to get front suspension for it and so on, for it to become a rolling vehicle. Now what I've gone and done is I've bought this scooter that will become the drivetrain for that Messerschmitt. And what I like about that is that it has got a automatic gearbox and 150cc 4-stroke motor, which produces about 10 horsepower. That is almost the same as what this car came out with. And what I like about that is that whole unit can be taken out, and if I make a bracket, I'll be able to take this whole unit with the gearbox and suspension and everything and retrofit it into the back of this Messerschmitt, or at least that is my plan. And what I also like about this scooter is that it's got those retro type of dials that are round, and maybe I'll be able to use that also in this Messerschmitt with the steering wheel and so on. So I think this is going to be a nice donor for this Messerschmitt. And then in the front, for the front suspension, I've gotten hold of this old quad motorcycle, and it's got a single wishbone suspension with some mechanical drum brakes, and I think those are going to be exactly what I need to put in the front with the shocks and everything for the front of the Messerschmitt. And my dad also got a hold of these inflatable wheelbarrow wheels, so I've got the right diameter, and I think that with these things I'll be able to get this little car on its wheels. So guys, in this video I'm going to be focusing on taking this motorcycle apart and seeing what I can use on the Messerschmitt and how I need to modify it to work. And hopefully by the end of this week I'll have this car on its own 3 wheels. So let's get started. Okay guys, well that was very easy to do. Only took me a couple of minutes, and the harness came off easily, and I'm also didn't even think about it, but I am now provided with a whole harness with indicators and lights and everything that I can just lengthen to size and use on the Messerschmitt. So that's also another plus. And as you can see, I can now basically just cut this body or this chassis in half and use this rear section with the springs and everything, and basically just make a frame that I can bolt onto the Messerschmitt, and I'll be able to use this whole section here at the back And then I can use the front part or whatever I need off of the scooter for the dials and dashboard and so on. But I think I'm just going to cut it off straight away now, and then we can see what my engine power plant is going to look like, so that I can then start fitting it into the Messerschmitt. Cool guys, well there we go. Now it's really starting to look like business. All I need to do now is bring the Messerschmitt closer, make some measurements, and see how we're going to build a frame onto this existing one, so that we can then bolt this onto the Messerschmitt. I think it's going to be very, very simple. Right guys, so I think that I've now established the position where I want this engine to be at. I did have a little bit of problems getting my clearance right here and making sure that this boot part would close properly, but that is the lowest that I can go. At the moment it's about 170 millimeters ground clearance, but I think that ground clearance is going to drop even more when I apply weight on these springs. And if it's not low enough, I'm not sure what the ground clearance is yet, supposed to be, then I can just adjust the spring and drop it down a little bit more. And if it needs to lift, then I can put a spacer in that spring as well. But at the moment I think that is more or less what I wanted. Another thing that I've decided I'm going to leave on this engine is this kickstand, and I think that's going to be like a nice feature that these cars didn't have, for me to do a service on it or whatever I want to do, remove the wheel or whatever. I can just drop down that kickstand and everything should be suspended. Now what I've decided how I'm going to be building these engine mounts or these mounting points is I'm going to be using the existing mounting points on the car. At the bottom there's two there and two at the top, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be welding onto this frame from the scooter a piece of square tubing from here to the other side, and then with some very, very thick gauge flat bar I'm going to be connecting it to that mounting spots on this body. I'm going to do basically the same thing with round bar at the top, just a piece of round bar from that spot over there to the frame of the scooter, and I'll put another round bar from that part over there to go more or less somewhere like that, just to keep the wheel from doing this. So it'll be strong in that direction and it'll also be strong in this direction, and I think that's all I'm going to need to get this thing to be connected to the body. And also I'll just make double sure that this thing is lined up properly and horizontally. I think it might be off a little bit, but I'm just going to remove it now and weld on that piece of square tubing, and then I can do some final measurements and weld on the rest of the tubes. Hey guys, it is standing on its own back wheel now. That is so awesome. Engine mounts are installed, they're looking okay. But yeah, the rear of this whole car is standing on its own wheel at the back, and the fitment is quite nice. I'll just close it up for you so you can see. Nice, cool. So it's not touching anywhere, everything closes up nicely, and the wheel seems like it's the right distance to the back if I compare it to pictures that I got. So that's awesome. Now we can move to the front. Alrighty guys, it is now the next morning and I have taken the liberty of moving the car to a position where I can better work in the front suspension. But I just want to explain to you the problem that I have with the suspension at the moment and how I plan on resolving it. You see, normally on a car that has got a suspension arm that moves freely on a hinge, if this side was the body and this side is where the hub and the wheel goes, it would be able to move freely, and there was a spring and shock absorber usually that is connected over here to the body somewhere, and that takes the pressure of this suspension and ultimately the weight of the car. On a Messerschmitt, it's got a rubber torsion suspension. In other words, there is a rubber molded into this arm, and the flex of the rubber is what takes the weight of the car. Like for instance, one would have with this engine mount, if the engine mount was bolted into the car and the arm was to lay over this rubber, the flex that this rubber would give would be the spring of the suspension. Now, I'm not familiar with that type of suspension, and also I think that if I was to try and do something like that, it would be the weakest point on this car. So I want to make a suspension that has got a spring that's connected over here to the body somewhere, and that would take the weight of the car. But I want to show you what my problem is. Now if you look inside of the Messerschmitt, this part over here that would take that rubber torsion suspension is very strong, but up there where I want to put the spring is not strong at all. It is just a piece of plate for this side and that side. So if I was to connect the spring on there, it would definitely buckle and flex this body. So unfortunately I won't be able to just simply put a spring up there and connect it to my arm that I want to build. So I'm gonna have to fabricate something that goes in there that can take the weight of this car, or the other option would be to cross brace it, but I'm not going to be doing that, or I hope I won't have to do that, because that would come in the way of my feet and it just won't look right. So what I need to do now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that scooter or that quad apart and see what I can use, and then see how I can fabricate something that I can go and put inside this wheel well that will take the weight. And also I don't really want to unnecessarily cut into this body, so I hope I'll be able to make something that I can just bolt on here in some way and then use those springs to carry the weight of this car. So let me get to taking that apart and then we can take it from there. Alright guys, so now I've taken this quad's front suspension off. I've got a nice set of drum brakes and hubs, and I've got these springs. Now I also took off the springs that I got with the scooter, and if they are going to be strong enough, I think it will look more period correct if I can use them. Otherwise I'll use the quad's shocks and springs. But now I need to fabricate something that's going to work in there, and honestly I don't really have any idea what I'm gonna be doing. So I'm thinking that instead of me trying to explain what I plan on doing, I'm gonna do something until it works, and when it does, I'll update you guys. Okay guys, time for an update. I have now fabricated 2 of these wishbones. I did however forget to put a caster in these wishbones, so I had to just cut it off and just eyeballed a bit of a caster into it. That basically just helps, gives stability to the car at higher speeds. So I've put that in there, and I did kind of commit on these shock absorbers, so I put these shock holders in here. And then I made these 2 shock towers that'll go inside the wheel well, because there's a nice strong spot at the bottom where you can hold these down. And then I just put this eye over here so that it can just help reduce rattle inside the shock tower. And I reckon that most force will be in an upward direction, because this shock will exert force in an upward direction. So I think they're going to be strong enough. If not, then I can just reinforce it. And another thing is, I don't know exactly what height this car is going to lay at with these shock absorbers, so I can just drill new holes depending on if it needs to go higher or lower when I got the wheels on. So I'm going to assemble all of this now, and then we can go on to making the wheels fit. Nice progress guys, the wheels in, the hubs in, everything is looking very cool, and I think I will at least give myself an A for effort. This is a lot of progress, but I really would like to have this car on its own wheels by the end of this week. So I think I'm gonna just push on a little longer and show you what my problem is with the wheels. These are what the wheels look like that fit in those hubs, and these are what the wheelbarrow wheels look like. And as you can see, they obviously do not have holes, and also this part is a bit bulbous, so it needs to become flat, and there needs to come a big hole in there like on this wheel. So what I've decided that I am going to do now is I will be making a new center plate out of this this base plate. I'm going to cut a round plate that fits in there, and I'm going to cut a new hole into it that is the same size as this center hole, and also the 4 holes for where the wheel nuts go. And then I'm going to drill 6 holes into that circle, and I'm going to cut out this center piece over here and drill 6 holes into it, and then I'm going to hold it down with these nuts and bolts. And it's funny because that is very much the same way that the original car was built, so it's gonna look rather original also. And I'm just gonna paint it white, everything, when I'm done with that. So let's see if I can quickly get that done, or well, quickly as in YouTube quickly, and put it on there and see if we can get this thing on its own 3 wheels. Guys, the weirdest thing is going on here. I have now painted these rims so many times. I've gone through 4 cans of white paint. I've even painted them black and left them overnight and painted them multiple times with white, and still the pink or the red keeps shining through. I'm not even mentioning the back. I've given up on that. Now this must have had so many coats of white already, and still the pink is shining through. I don't know what's going on and I cannot explain it, but I've now given up. These rims are going to be pink. Guys, check it out. On its own 3 wheels. It is looking so pretty, man. I love it. And I think that those pink wheels don't look too bad either. I still need to connect the steering wheel on these wheels, but apart from that, it is looking so damn pretty, I've got to tell you. Another thing is that it's still a bit high, so everything needs to drop down a little bit still, but I think I'll only do those final adjustments after I've put up the canopy and the steering wheel and all the things that's going to make this car a bit heavier, and then determine the final height. But I think this is looking so pretty. Now guys, I'm gonna love you and leave you with this, and I hope that you enjoyed this video this week, and I'll see you next week. Cheers!